Hey guys, DJ Gautam here. So today I would like to quickly share 3 things that you need to have a clarity of before you start a podcast. If you don't have these 3 things, please don't start a podcast. So the number one thing is why you would like to start a podcast. So before you start a podcast, it's very important for you to have the clarity of why, your purpose of starting a podcast, because I come across a lot of people who start a podcast with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of energy, and then they dry out even before they publish their 5th or 6th episode. And the reason for that is they don't have a deeper meaning or deeper purpose behind starting the podcast, right? Is it because that you have a message that you'd like to share out to the world? Or is it because you believe that there is a true potential in every individual, and through your podcast you want to help them realize their potential, pretty much like what I do with my podcast, The Inspiring Talk? If you don't have this kind of clarity or this kind of purpose behind your podcast, then if you say I'm starting a podcast to get clients for my business or for to build my authority or influence, then that's not going to happen overnight. That is going to be the byproduct of you serving the people. So for that, you need to have a deeper purpose. For you to consistently produce content for another 6 months, a year, or maybe 2, you need to have your clarity on why you'd like to start a podcast, what kind of impact that you'd like to have on the people listening to your podcast. So that's number one. Have a clear why. Number 2, know who your listener is. And this is something that I see a lot of existing podcasters struggle a lot with as well. They don't know who their listeners are. Who are you trying to serve? What are the character of these people? What are the kind of content that these people consume? What is it that the people like? What is it that they don't like? What are their frustrations? What are their pain? What are their aspirations that you are trying to solve with your podcast? If you don't know who your listeners are, then your content is not going to serve anyone. So I hear people saying, my podcast is for everyone, which means your podcast is for no one. Have that clear definition of your listener. Who are your target listeners for your podcast? And the moment you have the absolute clarity of your listeners, then your content will start signing. Your content will now start speaking to this audience. And when you are creating podcast episodes, then you will absolutely know whether your audience, because you already have the clarity of your audience, whether your audience will enjoy or like that content or not. So number 1, have a why or purpose of starting a podcast. Number 2, define who your listeners are. And the third thing that you need to have absolute clarity before starting a podcast is what is the unique value proposition that you are going to bring on your podcast. If you are looking at starting a podcast on leadership, it is very likelihood there are going to be, there are already a ton of podcasts on leadership. Then what is it that you are going to bring on the table that people should listen to your podcast versus what is already out there? What is the unique thing about your podcast? What is your USP? If you don't have a differentiator for your podcast, then please don't start a podcast, right? Today technology makes it very easier for anyone to start a podcast, but if you don't have either of these 3 things, then please do not start a podcast. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next. Bye.